Hey, stuffers. If the Earth is flat, where the heck do all the flat tires come from? Alex here, and welcome back to Stuff with Alex. Now, I'm going to start this deep dive right where every good conspiracy story should. The moment the heroes inadvertently punch themselves in the face with pure, undeniable reality. Forget ancient Greek shadows or fuzzy NASA photos. We're talking about 2024. In the year of our Lord 2024, a highly motivated team of flat Earth believers, led by an American Christian pastor named Will Duffy, organized what they called the final experiment. The goal? Prove the flat Earth model once and for all. Their destination? Antarctica, the supposed edge of the world, the legendary ice wall. This wasn't some quick weekend trip. This took 3 years of planning and involved recruiting 48 online content creators, flat earthers and globe earthers, to witness a specific phenomenon that should be impossible on a flat disk: the midnight sun. On the flat Earth model, where the tiny sun acts like a spotlight rotating above the plane, the sun should never be visible 24 hours a day at the rim. So what happened? They traveled from Chile to the Union Glacier Camp in West Antarctica, and they live-streamed the experience. For several days, they watched the midnight sun shine brightly, refusing to set. And here is the kicker, stuffers. The participating flat earthers, the ones who went on the multi-year expensive quest to disprove the globe, all admitted the midnight sun was a real phenomenon. The globe was implicitly confirmed. The fallout? The larger flat Earth community, the ones safe at home behind their keyboards, immediately rejected the results. They accused the expedition members, including their own brethren, of faking the trip and being part of a deeper pro-spherical conspiracy. They organized a trip to prove the world was flat, proved it was round, and then got canceled by the community they tried to save. Now that, my friends, is commitment to the bit. Today, we break down the conspiracy so dumb it literally debunks itself. The modern flat Earth movement is arguably one of the greatest hoaxes running on the internet today. A spectacular fusion of religion, pseudoscience, and pure financial grift. But to understand the current chaotic state of the flat disk, we have to clear up some history. Starting with the historical myth they desperately rely on. If you ask a flat earther, they'll often suggest that the spherical model is a recent nefarious invention forced upon us by NASA and other state agencies. They imply that for thousands of years, everyone, especially medieval people, believed Earth was flat until some secular scientists ruined everything. This is fundamentally untrue. The idea that medieval Europeans widely believed the Earth was flat is actually a historical myth, created in the 17th century and popularized in the 19th century primarily by Protestants arguing against Catholic teachings. In reality, the concept of a spherical Earth appeared in ancient Greek philosophy with Pythagoras as early as the 6th century BC. By the time Plato was writing in the early 4th century BC, and especially with Aristotle around 330 BC, strong empirical evidence confirming a spherical Earth was widely accepted among educated individuals in the Hellenistic world. Even in the early Christian church, the spherical view was broadly held, though some exceptions existed. Mariners, for instance, have known the Earth was round for centuries, allowing them to traverse one ocean and return via another. If the Earth were flat, they would have simply sailed off the edge. The modern resurgence of the flat Earth concept wasn't born out of ancient discovery. It was born out of 19th century denial. The revival in the 1800s was particularly strong among Christian fundamentalist circles, who viewed modern science, particularly the emerging fields of geology and evolution, as conspiratorial threats to biblical authority. This is where Samuel Burley Rowbotham enters the scene. Rowbotham published the influential treatise Zetetic Astronomy, Earth, Not a Globe, in 1881. This work was foundational, proposing that the Earth was a flat, stationary center of the universe. Fast forward almost 2 centuries, and we find modern flat Earth proponents like Eric Dubé, often called a flat Earth messiah, peddling an almost identical narrative, sometimes repackaging Rowbotham's claims under new names like 200 flat Earth proofs. This lack of originality shows that the modern conspiracy isn't about finding new evidence. It's about recycling and rebranding old, disproven claims to generate new interest and, more importantly, new revenue. The sheer intellectual gymnastics required to maintain the modern flat Earth model reveal a powerful defense mechanism: the need for historical revisionism. If flat Earth beliefs were only common among ancient pre-scientific cultures, the modern movement has no credibility. Therefore, they must invent the narrative of the globist conspiracy, the idea that the truth was known but suppressed by an elite cadre of scientists, starting not in the 20th century, but centuries prior. This revisionism is essential because the theory's core product is not a new cosmology, it's distrust. If educated people have known the Earth was round since the birth of Christ, then believing the Earth is flat means you must fundamentally deny the reliability of not just NASA, but all history, all cartography, all navigation, and all education. The conspiracy demands that the foundation of human institutional knowledge is rotten. If you buy the flat disk, you have bought the entire concept of universal institutional deception. Now that we understand the historical framework of denial, let's explore the geography of the modern flat Earth model. This is where the conspiracy hits its stride, transforming our planet into a massive, frozen frisbee governed by impossible logistics. The most commonly promoted model today is not just a random plate floating in space. It is a highly specific structure resembling the logo of the United Nations. This structure utilizes a projection known as the azimuthal equidistant projection, placing the North Pole squarely in the center of the disk. All continents then radiate outward from this center point. This flat map drastically distorts the shapes and distances of the southern continents, which is why global travel, particularly flying routes in the southern hemisphere, becomes nearly impossible to reconcile with this model. The critical, non-negotiable feature of this map is what holds it all together and keeps the oceans from spilling into the void: the Antarctic ice wall. In the flat Earth world, Antarctica is not a continent at the bottom of a globe. It is a colossal 360-degree continuous ring of ice surrounding the entire perimeter of the flat disk. Flat earthers argue that this ice wall is the true edge of the world, and it is guarded fiercely by an international deep state conspiracy involving NASA and all world governments. This ice wall theory creates staggering logistical demands. We must believe that the world's most powerful and historically adversarial nations, think the US, Russia, China, and the dozens of signatories to the Antarctic Treaty are all perfectly aligned and spending untold trillions of dollars not just for scientific research, but to maintain a global, multi-generational silence about the shape of our home. This makes the logistical complexity of the Flat Earth conspiracy far exceed that of almost any other known conspiracy theory. If they can all agree on this one foundational lie, what can't they agree to lie about? The required level of cooperation necessary to maintain the ice wall secret points to a critical underlying principle of this belief system. The theory's logistical collapse makes it the ultimate gateway conspiracy. If a person accepts that every government, every airline, every ship captain, every physicist, and every astronaut is colluding perfectly and continuously to maintain a single secret about geometry, they must, by extension, conclude that any official truth is fake. This requires believers to discard all empirical evidence and trust only a small circle of self-appointed gurus. The conspiracy must be so comprehensive that it infiltrates every layer of society and science, from the international dateline to your local compass. Because if the world is flat, then all the systems that operate based on spherical geometry, GPS, long-haul flight navigation, international time zones, and satellite communications must be an illusion, a magnificent and expensive stage show running non-stop. Drop your wildest theory in the comments. What are they really hiding behind the ice wall? Is it more land, dinosaurs, or just Jeff Bezos's secret mansion? Let me know. The modern flat Earth model necessitates that every single visual piece of evidence for a spherical Earth, from satellite images to astronaut footage, is fraudulent. Flat Earthers claim that NASA is perpetually photoshopping its satellite images, often citing minor variations in ocean color or continental placement between images as proof of fabrication. It's an incredible accusation that thousands of NASA employees, photographers, and editors have dedicated their entire careers to adjusting the hue of the Atlantic Ocean just to keep the wool over the eyes of the general public. We are asked to believe that the space agency tasked with exploring the cosmos is actually just running a very sophisticated, multi-billion-dollar graphic design studio that's working overtime to hide the existence of a frozen border wall. This level of cynical grandiosity is the bloodlife of the conspiracy.
If the geography of the flat disk is defined by an ice wall, the cosmology is defined by the absolute necessity of localizing all celestial mechanics. They have to explain what happens above the disk, and this is where the physics truly goes off the rails. To explain day and night without the Earth rotating, flat earthers replace the concept of a distant massive star with a tiny, local, orbiting light source. According to foundational flat Earth texts and modern adaptations, the Sun and Moon are only about 32 miles, 51 kilometers, in diameter and hover just a few thousand miles above the disk. Crucially, the Sun operates like a powerful spotlight above a stage. It rotates in circles above the center, the North Pole. When the light is directly overhead, it is noon. When the light moves away, the light beam is believed to spread out and eventually dissipate due to atmospheric perspective, creating the illusion of night for those far away. This spotlight model struggles immensely with basic observations like seasons, time zones, and sunsets. Seasons. To explain seasons, the Sun spirals. According to the Flat Earth Society, the Sun spirals inward toward the North Pole in June, creating northern hemisphere summer, and spiral slowly outward toward the ice wall perimeter in December, creating northern hemisphere winter. During the spring and autumn equinoxes, the sun circles perfectly above the equator. Time zones. The model breaks down entirely when confronted with international time zones and navigation. Because the light source is localized, the difference in daylight between eastern and western regions should be chaotic and inconsistent. The fact that there are 24 defined time zones and that a 3-hour difference can exist across the relatively small Bering Strait region is mathematically inconsistent with a flat disk localized sun model. Furthermore, the observation of a sunset where the sun appears to sink below a curved horizon is only possible on a globe. On a flat disk, the sun should simply get smaller and smaller until it fades out due to perspective. The most immediate and fatal flaw in the flat Earth hypothesis is its total reliance on denying one of the 4 fundamental forces of nature: gravity. If Earth were a flat disk, the universal law of gravitation dictates that the immense mass would instantly collapse in on itself to form a sphere, as all other large celestial bodies, planets, large moons, and stars, have done. Gravity pulls mass towards its center, and in a massive object, that center is the center of the sphere. Flat earthers must replace gravity with alternative forces, most commonly citing concepts like buoyancy and density to explain why objects fall. Some older models even suggested the entire disk was constantly accelerating upward at 9.8 meters per second squared. The absurdity of this is apparent. We must believe that the universe somehow allows physics to work differently near Earth than it does everywhere else. The underlying issue here is the conspiracy of convenient physics. Flat Earth proponents selectively accept observable physics, density and buoyancy, for things that fall on the surface, but they vehemently reject the universal laws of celestial mechanics, gravity, and inertia. This requires the conspiracy to not only control visual evidence and global logistics, but also to subtly alter the fundamental laws of nature near the surface of the Earth. If the scope of the alleged conspiracy is limitless, its model becomes immune to falsification, as any disproving data can simply be explained away as an intentional deception orchestrated by the dark forces controlling physics itself. The following table synthesizes the difference between the two cosmologies and underscores the complexity required by the flat model to explain simple observations. Flat Earth model versus scientific globe model.
Despite the sophisticated arguments about light refraction, angular momentum, and the density of objects that flat earthers use today, the globe can be definitively proven using methods that predate electricity, telescopes, and even the Roman Empire. These ancient proofs remain the most elegant refutations of the flat disk. Around 240 BCE, the Greek mathematician Eratosthenes conducted one of the most brilliant and low-tech experiments in history, confirming the curvature of the Earth and even calculating its circumference. Eratosthenes noticed that on the summer solstice, a pole cast no shadow in Syene, modern Aswan, indicating the sun was directly overhead. However, on the same day, an identical pole in Alexandria, located farther north, cast a shadow. This observation is only possible if the Earth's surface is curved, assuming, as the Greeks correctly did, that the sun's rays travel in parallel lines. On a flat surface, parallel rays would strike both poles at the same angle, and if one cast no shadow, the other shouldn't either. By measuring the angle of the shadow and the distance between the two cities, Eratosthenes used simple geometry, arc length calculation to determine the Earth's circumference with remarkable accuracy. This speaks volumes. A single individual, using a stick and some shade, measured the entire planet 2 millennia ago. The fact that this simple, reproducible, and verifiable experiment is still dismissed by modern adherents demonstrates an astonishing level of science denial. Two other classic observations provide incontrovertible evidence of sphericity that require no high-tech conspiracy to verify. Ships on the horizon. When a ship sails away, it appears to sink below the horizon, hull first, followed by the mast. Conversely, when a ship approaches, the mast or the top of the sail appears first before the rest of the ship. This sequential disappearance is geometrically impossible on a flat plane, where the entire ship should simply shrink consistently into the distance. Stargazing. The view of the night sky fundamentally changes depending on latitude. A flat Earth would allow observers everywhere to see the same star map. Yet, observers in the northern hemisphere see constellations like Ursa Major and the North Star that are entirely different from the constellations visible in the southern hemisphere, like the Southern Cross. The North Star, which remains fixed above the North Pole, drops progressively lower in the sky as one travels south, and disappears entirely south of the equator. This is possible only on a curved surface. It is important to remember that NASA was not needed to establish the Earth's shape. The space age merely provided the final, gorgeous visual confirmation. Long before space travel, our ancestors utilized the stars, shadows, and the sea to deduce the shape of our beautiful round object. But wait! If a $3 observation can sink the entire flat model, why do people spend thousands trying to prove it wrong? The answer is as deeply cynical as it is hilarious. Hold on to your tinfoil hats because the next chapter is pure, unadulterated failure. The greatest source of unintentional comedy in the flat Earth community comes from their attempts to conduct scientific experiments. Experiments that, without fail, prove the very thing they seek to disprove. This section is a highlight reel of expensive, high-stakes, and completely botched self-debunking. One of the most famous examples, documented extensively in the 2018 documentary Behind the Curve, involved flat Earth proponents purchasing an incredibly sensitive and expensive laser gyroscope. The purpose of a gyroscope is to detect rotation. Their hypothesis was simple. If the Earth is stationary and flat, the gyroscope should read 0 rotation. The actual result? The laser gyroscope, an instrument designed for high-precision navigation, immediately and consistently detected the rotation of the Earth. The rotation measured was approximately 15 degrees per hour, precisely what science predicts for a planet rotating once every 24 hours. The reaction from the experimenters was a masterclass in intellectual retreat. Rather than accepting the data, they concluded that the gyroscope must be affected by a mysterious external force, a nefarious conspiracy influence designed to deceive the instruments themselves. Other attempts, using low-tech methods, have similarly backfired. Flat Earthers have performed light tests over large, calm bodies of water, attempting to confirm that the surface is perfectly level. In these tests, they shine a light from one side and observe it from the other. Due to the Earth's curvature, the light beam should disappear below the visible horizon at a certain distance. In every documented attempt, the light source vanished prematurely, confirming the required drop due to Earth's curvature. Again, the logical conclusion is systematically avoided. Instead of admitting the surface is curved, proponents find excuses, blaming issues with the instruments, density of air, atmospheric refraction, or faulty placement, anything but the model itself. Even high-altitude amateur footage, such as videos taken by physics students using weather balloons reaching 23 kilometers, well above the altitude of commercial airliners, clearly shows the curvature of the Earth. The primary counterargument to this footage is the claim that the curvature is merely an optical illusion caused by the wide-angle or fisheye lenses typically used in these devices. While it is true that these lenses can exaggerate curvature, the simple fact that the curvature is visible at all from that altitude contradicts the idea of a boundless flat plane. But because the theory is always protected, the failure of the lens to show a flat surface becomes proof of the lens's deception, not the Earth's shape. Stuffers, smash that like button if you're already confused by the sheer dedication to being wrong. The systematic failure of these experiments highlights the central non-scientific characteristic of this movement. The structure of belief is immune to falsification. Normal scientific method demands that if data contradicts the hypothesis must be revised or discarded. For the flat Earth community, when the experiment fails, the failure is never taken as evidence against the flat model. Instead, it is taken as confirmation of a deeper, more pervasive, and more manipulative conspiracy. This forms a protective psychological feedback loop. The hypothesis, Earth is flat, is the starting point, not the conclusion. Any evidence to the contrary, whether from NASA or from their own expensive equipment, is simply evidence that the conspiracy is more powerful and sophisticated than they previously imagined. They're locked into a perpetual state of distrust, where every scientific reality becomes further proof of the cover-up. We often focus on physics, but the flat Earth conspiracy is fundamentally an ideological and existential movement. For many adherents, especially those motivated by certain strands of religious fundamentalism, the flat disk cannot exist without its protective celestial canopy, the firmament. The modern flat Earth movement, like its 19th century predecessor, is deeply interwoven with specific interpretations of religious texts. For some proponents, accepting the scientific consensus of a spherical Earth orbiting a star in a vast cosmos feels like an assault on divine creation and biblical authority. They find refuge in the concept of the firmament, Hebrew rakia, drawn from ancient Near Eastern and certain early biblical cosmologies. In this archaic view, the firmament is depicted as a vast, solid dome, created by God to separate the primal sea into upper waters and lower waters. This dome essentially seals the Earth, the disk, into a closed cosmic system. The necessity of the firmament serves a powerful psychological need. In the flat Earth model, the sun, moon, and stars are not impossibly distant celestial bodies, but are placed within or under this celestial dome. This configuration provides a small, finite, and comprehensible world, a deliberate container for human existence. This is a direct confrontation with the vastness of scientific cosmology. If the Earth is a small, insignificant rock hurtling through a near-infinite, cold universe, it can trigger existential dread. The firmament, however, grounds the world in a localized, purposeful and divinely ordered structure. The psychological shift is profound. By accepting the firmament, they reject the anxiety of cosmic insignificance and embrace the comforting certainty of a world designed entirely for them. The world is small, protected, and the definitive center of creation. It is important to note that while this concept has ancient roots, the vast majority of educated Christian and Jewish scholars accepted the spherical Earth model centuries ago, reconciling their faith with observed astronomical reality. The return to the firmament is therefore a specific rejection of 2 millennia of theological and astronomical understanding in favor of a simpler, more controlled narrative. The flat Earth theory would have died with Robotham in the 19th century if not for the convergence of 2 modern phenomena, the rise of social media and the profitability of outrage. The flat Earth movement today is less a scientific movement and more an effective, decentralized business model built on digital engagement. The movement is driven by gurus who have successfully built massive platforms by selling doubt and a counter-narrative. These leaders, like Eric Dubay and others who repackage old pseudoscience, monetize through books, merchandise, and most lucratively, large-scale events. The existence of the Flat Earth International Conference, FEIC, held in cities like North Carolina and Denver, underscores the financial viability of this belief system. These events attract hundreds of attendees who pay fees, buy merchandise, and affirm a shared identity. The high-profile crowdfunding attempt by rapper B.O.B. in 2017, aiming to raise $1 million for a satellite launch to find the curve, further highlights the financial potential inherent in selling the idea that everyone else is wrong. The financial viability of Flat Earth, the lucrative flow of conference tickets, merch, Patreon support, and ad revenue from highly viewed controversy videos creates a direct incentive for proponents to ignore inconvenient scientific failures. The profit motive reinforces the denial loop. If they admit the Earth was round, the business model collapses. The conspiracy isn't maintained by NASA, it's sustained by the decentralized digital economy of engagement and outrage. The product sold is not an alternative cosmology, but a valuable shared identity of being in on the secret. The exponential growth of flat Earth belief since the 2010s is directly attributable to social media platforms, particularly YouTube. Studies have shown that the YouTube recommendation algorithm often funnels users who express curiosity about one conspiracy theory into other related counter-narratives. Flat Earth serves as a powerful gateway drug for broader science denial. Once a person distrusts the scientific consensus on the shape of the Earth, it is a small step to distrust scientific truths about climate change, vaccines, or evolution. The psychological appeal of the movement is rooted in a fundamental distrust of established institutions and a sense of marginalization. The conspiracy provides a powerful dissident narrative, attracting individuals who feel ignored or misrepresented by mainstream society. By finding a community of thousands online, their counterfactual beliefs are constantly affirmed, making it very difficult for critical thinking to penetrate the echo chamber. The movement has become so prominent that it is now a fixture of observational comedy. Stand-up comics and late-night shows like Jimmy Kimmel have sent correspondents to Flat Earth conferences, treating the entire phenomenon as a ripe target for satire, often focusing on the extreme difficulty of maintaining such a massive logistical secret. The humor is always rooted in the gap between the monumental claims and the pitiful evidence. We have sailed around the flat disk, scraped the ice wall, navigated the local spotlight, and watched flat earthers accidentally prove the globe with their own expensive toys. The analysis reveals a complex phenomenon, driven not by new data, but by old anxieties, ideological defense mechanisms, and a highly lucrative digital grift. Ultimately, the most telling aspect of the Flat Earth conspiracy is its self-debunking nature. From the gyroscope that reported planetary rotation to the 2024 Antarctic Expedition that confirmed the midnight sun, the adherents repeatedly run headfirst into objective reality. Yet the belief persists, simply because the rewards of belonging and the comfort of certainty outweigh the burden of accepting difficult facts. The journey into this conspiracy reminds us that while the geometry of our planet has been settled for over 2,000 years, the human struggle to discern truth from comfortable fabrication is ongoing. It is a powerful reminder of the universal principle of wisdom, the importance of intellectual humility, and the rigorous pursuit of truth, regardless of where that truth may lead or how inconvenient it might be to our established beliefs. True wisdom requires discernment, to distinguish between sensationalism that promises a secret world and the empirical reality available to all. Whether you find truth in physics, philosophy, or faith, the ability to seek it out and accept it when you find it is ultimately what keeps us from being easily manipulated by grifters, regardless of whether the world is a ball or a frisbee. Know the truth, stuffers. As it says in Scripture, and you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free. John chapter 8, verse 32. Okay, thanks for watching. Peace out. Goodbye, guys.